Hi, this is Cajun, and it's time for our weekly conference call. We'll start with what's happening around the globe, and as we all know, everyone is contending with the global COVID-19 pandemic, and it's having an effect on most every economy, and we're paying attention to this. It impacts every company around the world. I think it's impacted about a million. I think it was close to a million companies so far in Asia. What we're also noticing is that death rates are climbing higher, and they're a little more than is being reported. And that just adds to some of the uncertainty that the world is experiencing now. We have yet to experience the impact of what will happen with a global economic downturn. No one's ever experienced this before, where you've had multiple economies from around the world get impacted this way. To ease some of the difficulty, the U.S. has put together a package that's over $6 trillion, and $2 trillion has already been approved. I'm sure most of you have heard that, and that's going out to small businesses in terms of loans and also grant applications, and it's going to hospitals and a few other things like that to beef up the response to the COVID-19 crisis. Japan has also allocated $1 trillion to the COVID-19 crisis. What we're also seeing is that it takes no prisoners. It doesn't. It targets just about any individual. Any individual. A lot of it depends on the disposition of your DNA, your genome, or pre-existing conditions. One of the individuals, lots of high-profile individuals have been affected, and this, of course, affects economic conditions and every company. When you've got world leaders that are going into the ICU, like Boris Johnson, and no one knows what the outcome will be, that just adds to the uncertainty to an even greater extent. And right now, no one really knows what the ripple effects are going to be, but what we do know is, as a company, we have to have a firm foundation, and that's what we have. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. On the industry side, on the NLP data sets and artificial intelligence, machine learning side, just as we mentioned during our last conference call, there's been a complete shift in focus related to companies that specialize in natural language processing, especially, and natural language understanding. That is the only way to analyze what is being said and what's being interpreted from scientific papers being published related to COVID-19 and the virus. So we have decided, as was mentioned previously, to gear most of our efforts toward applying what we know in natural language processing to these papers, and that connects directly to the data sets we're building, and also paying attention to some of the latest developments in NLP and NLU. And right now, what we're noticing is that a lot of groups are digging into their toolboxes and pulling out all the stops, taking what they know, and instead of keeping it as trade secrets, or instead of reserving it for a paper that they might want to publish, they're just going ahead and publishing everything that they have now in terms of edges or some of the advancements in natural language processing and understanding that can be applied to the pandemic. And we are doing the same. On the crypto side, it looks like crypto is experiencing a little bit of an upturn here. It looks like cash is moving into crypto. We've got BTC trading at 7,300, and we've got ETH trading at about 170 right now. So it looks like cash is moving in. There is still a tremendous amount of uncertainty, though, and every asset class is still being affected by people wanting to go cash. So we're going to keep an eye on that and observe how these ripple effects are going to impact people's confidence in certain asset classes over the next couple of weeks as people digest the news or get familiar with recent news. On the corporate side, company side, we have not only shifted resources toward natural language processing and natural language understanding toward COVID-19 scientific papers, but we are also shifting resources into grant writing. And one of the reasons for that is because we are interested and are executing on inserting ourselves in the middle of the battlefield here. Whenever you've got a major global crisis, you want to be in the middle of the battlefield if you have something to offer. Not only are you helping, but you are also affording yourself or positioning yourself for opportunity. And there's going to be a whole new landscape of opportunities. There already is a whole new landscape of opportunities popping up related to solving for COVID-19 and other infectious diseases. And that has a lot to do with grant writing. It has a lot to do with the trillions in funding that have been allocated specifically to the COVID-19 pandemic. And when you dig a little deeper, you find that more specifically, it's about understanding what's being published in recent scientific research. That is all to do with human language and processing that human language. So we're inserting ourselves right in the middle of the battlefield this way so that we can not only have a positive effect, but be in an even stronger position than we were pre-COVID or pre-virus. On the engineering side, that connects directly to the construction of data sets. In particular, our automated dataset builder. This means you get to choose features or column labels, and we'll correlate them to either drug compounds related to infectious disease, COVID-19, or related to drug compounds or related to infectious diseases themselves. The dataset builder is still being worked on. We're in the debugging phase right now. It's taking us a little longer. That's just because we've got wild activity happening outside of the company. It's very important for people to keep that in mind. We are not living in a bubble, and it's very important to keep your eye on the headlines so you understand what all companies are up against right now on the outside and how it ripples to the inside of companies and how companies are readapting or refining their strategies, pivoting, or whatever it takes to make it through this rocky road here. Scaling dataset production is another key factor. We had a question from someone related to whether or not we had human resources or engineering resources to produce datasets. Well, when you have a data engineering pipeline and you've automated it, one of the reasons you've chosen to automate it is so that you do not have to engage in an engineering effort for every data set. And that's where we are today, is having most of our pipeline automated so that we can scale. Automation almost equals scaling. And we want to make sure that we are operating bug-free. You can never really say that you're operating bug-free, but from our vantage, we need to be able to say that we're operating bug-free and without any inconsistencies. As this is some of the most important kind of software engineering you can do. It's scientific software engineering. It's related to data, related to a global pandemic. So it's very important for us to get it right. And if we say that we have the goods, then we need to prove to the world that we do without having any inconsistencies or bugs. So we're going over lines of code, making sure that everything works properly and consistently. And we've also got We've got two branches of code here, you might say. We've got one that's a more permanent, scalable branch that's being worked on every day by our engineering team, and we've got the other experimental prototype branch that supports what we're currently offering on the dataset builder side. We'll be merging the two later, but for now, this is how we're acting quickly and responsively. On the customers, collaborators, and partners side, a lot of our customers and collaborators now are going to be academic institutions fighting the COVID-19 crisis. And that means that for every grant proposal we produce and submit, that group has the potential of being our collaborators, whether it's the NIH or National Science Foundation, or it could be the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or whatever other institution is focused on handling the COVID-19 crisis. And that just so happens to be most of them today. And that also means that grant applications abound. You've got trillions in funding right now pouring into COVID-19. And that means that there are a tremendous number of independent funding sources and funding streams available to move research forward, to move advancements toward a cure for COVID-19 or inhibiting the virus itself, disabling it. So as a company, as a team, we are working on producing or applying to hundreds of grant proposals or requests for proposals. If you actually do a search, you can find out what we're talking about. If you do a search in quotes on Google for call for papers and then the word COVID-19, or in quotes request for proposals or request for proposal and COVID-19, you'll be able to see a lot of funding being directed from the trillions into solutions and requests for proposals or call for papers. And we're answering those calls right now in the form of grant applications. We're working with inside groups and inside teams and outside groups in composing these grant applications. We're also going to be working with public companies and private companies on acquiring grants and funding. Microsoft is one of them. Amazon is another one of them. And they also fall into the category of being our customers, revenue-generating customers. So we're getting there. Hopefully this week we will execute on a PR with Amazon, and PR defined by however Amazon would like to communicate this to the public. And we know that they are itching to communicate this as fast as possible, just like every other group is itching to communicate any kind of solution or advancement related to the COVID-19 crisis. In terms of customers related to the financial markets, we have one, and that is Bloomberg. And we have another that represents 70 customers. That's new data. We are going to handle that after we handle the delivery of data sets on the COVID-19 side. And if we speak to the opportunity related to the COVID-19 side, it's because we will be delivering free data sets on the COVID-19 side, but they won't be free for other infectious diseases. This is an onboarding process. It's a way for us to not only give back in terms of our resources on the NLP and NLU side to the COVID-19 pandemic and creating solutions for that, but it is also an opportunity in the form of attracting additional business in the life sciences area for us. And as mentioned during the last call, that's what we'll be targeting, but not after we first deliver on the COVID-19 stuff. On the PR and IR side, when Amazon's ready to go, then we'll engage with our PR firm and have them go ahead and magnify Amazon's and Microsoft's messaging to the public. On the exchanges side, everyone needs to sit tight. The exchanges will hear from us when Amazon releases their communication to the public. Things need to happen in order right now, and that's very important for people to understand. Everything needs to happen in order. Everything has dependencies upon one another. Things just don't get executed at the exact same time. So it's very important to keep an eye on scheduling and an understanding of what we are working on currently, and then what has happened before, and what will happen afterwards. It's all timing. On the strategy side, our strategy has a lot to do with applying for grants now. Grants attract business once you have an accepted grant proposal. I'll be the primary investigator or the principal investigator, and occasionally we may have Raf Podowski, or we'll have one of our academic collaborators be the principal investigator, but for the most part, I'll serve as the principal investigator and take the lead in putting together the statement of work and anything else, specific aims or goals, and how much funding is required for a particular goal related to the COVID-19 research papers and NLP, NLU. We have some reminders for people. We want to make sure everyone understands that this is not like making chocolate chip cookies or following a chocolate chip cookie recipe. This is a very complex set of instructions, millions of instructions. It requires deep work. It's a lot like going into surgery if you're a surgeon, except you're not doing a 12-hour surgery, you're doing a 72-hour surgery. So it's very important for people to understand that our business and our innovation, our creativity, the solutions we create for COVID-19 do not happen based on chatting over Telegram. They do not happen based on noise that we create. They happen based on silence that we create. So if we are silent, that does not mean we are going dark. That means we are getting stuff done. So very important for people to understand that. Keep that at the forefront of your heads. That will make it a lot easier for this company and for your pocketbooks. This is a scientific and engineering company, and that requires us going dark. So I can't express that in any greater detail, so please keep that in mind. Another important reminder is to understand that nobody is providing what we are providing in terms of data sets. We've had people ask us about, well, who's competing with us on this front? And no one is competing with us on the front of context-controlled correlation matrix data sets related to infectious diseases in life sciences or in the financial markets right now. So that gives us an advantage. But we have to be executing on time and very quickly, very responsibly, and that's what we're working on. We're also noticing that most people are about 2 weeks behind, sometimes a month or two behind on news. So we're encouraging everyone to pay close attention to the headlines. The questions you might have that you might ask us today may have been already answered 2 weeks ago in the headlines. So what's happening right now around the world requires anyone, if they're interested in reducing their risk or being informed, then you must stay up on the headlines. You must spend the time reading those headlines and choosing which ones are relevant to your goals and the goals of this company, or impact them. So we encourage everyone to do that. And one minor note on conference calls, we'll have an archive up tomorrow related to, or listing all the conference calls that we've had over the last couple of months, so that we can direct people to updates related to the company, so we're not getting multiple questions in the same vein that can be answered simply by listening and spending the time listening to a conference call on your part. Very important to do. So this is a pre-recorded call, so I'm not going to ask if anyone has any questions, but what we will do is close the call. If you do have any questions, you can send them over Telegram. We'll compile a list of questions so that we can answer these questions every conference call. And one minor note on the conference calling infrastructure that we have. We've been using Zoom, and Zoom is no longer a viable option for us because it's no longer a viable option for the U.S. public school systems, which has decided to cancel Zoom. Zoom is no longer a viable option for SpaceX or NASA or New York City. They've all canceled their service, canceled their Zoom services. not just because of spotty, unprofessional, non-commercial service, but based on the fact that Zoom has been hacked, but even more so, several times, but even more so, Zoom has backdoors that have been built in, similar to other companies you may have heard about in the past. So we'll leave it at that. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to submit over Telegram. Otherwise, we will close the call and see you online. Thanks for listening.